Welcome to Pay It Forward. Today I've got a really quick and easy pattern for you all. This is a little pillow sitter, I call it. This is a little sleep sheep and designed to sit on a little one's pillow and to encourage them to sleep at night. We've got a little tiny sleep mask on our sheep. You don't have to put that on there, but it is a really sweet little concept. Decorate this little one any way you like. Now this uses up your scraps and you don't have to make it up in Sherpa. You've got some other options there, but it is so quick and easy. You can make this up easy in a couple of hours. And it's a really beautiful little gift to give to anyone really. So you've got your free pattern. You just need to download that. You'll find the link in the description drop down box below where it says see more. There will be your link to print out your pattern on your own home printer. Do make sure that you follow the instructions. I've given you a blurb about printing there. You've got a measuring bar on every page of your pattern templates. Do make sure that you pay attention to that so that all of your pattern pieces are right. All seam allowances are always included in all of my patterns. Just makes it so much easier for you all. So let's get busy making our little sleep sheep. Let me show you what you're going to need to put together a beautiful little sleepy sheep. Now there's a couple of fabrics you can use to make this one. I'm using Sherpa because obviously it imitates that sheep fleece. You do have to treat the backing fabric if you are going to use Sherpa. You can alternatively use fleece, so just a polar fleece fabric will work really well. Or you can use just felt, although if you're using felt, remember that the body will be considerably smaller overall. The fleece, the Sherpa does plump it out and looks nice and woolly. So what you need to do if you're going to be using Sherpa is first of all you need to trace out your two pieces, your two side body pieces with a laundry marker. It needs to be a laundry marker, because then we're going to take a mixture of PVA glue and water with a brush. This is before we cut our pieces out. Your mixture of PVA should be 2 parts water, 1 part PVA glue. And mix it all together, and just with a brush, you're going to brush the opening, because we've got a little opening at the top, that's where we turn it through. You brush the opening and that's going to stop it fraying away. The way we put it together, we're going to have a raw edge showing, so it does need to be sealed. And I do go over the rest of the lines lightly. It just makes it easier for cutting out and it stops all that stretching and it stabilizes the edges a little and makes the job much better, but you do want the rest of it to stay quite soft. So I've gone for that dirty sort of a beige that most black-faced sheep are, but certainly you can use a lighter colour. You might want to make a green sheep or a pink sheep. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. So then we need a base for our sheep. Now the base does need to be made out of felt. Because of the way it's put together, the felt base makes it sit nice and flat, and it is interfaced. It's interfaced with a fusible woven cotton interfacing. And you need it to be the cotton woven interfacing because it keeps everything nice and flexible. I've obviously matched that colour up with my sheep coat colour. Then for the head, it is just 2 pieces cut from the same interfaced felt. I'm using pure wool felt throughout, I just prefer it, but you can use a washable acrylic. You've got your 2 head pieces cut in the black. Then if you want to, you can add that lovely little sleep mask, which is super cute. And this piece is cut from double felt. Now double felt is just 2 pieces of felt joined together with fusible webbing, and then you cut your template out of that. Cute little accessory. I've put 2 different coloured pinks together and we're going to have that brighter pink showing. To put this one together, the threads you're going to need a matching pearl thread. I'm using 8 ply, and you need your extra strong thread for construction. And then I use my extra strong threads for my embroidery as well, because we're going to embroider some little closed eyes there. Also, we need a little bit of pearl thread. I'll be using this one again, just to stitch in a nose, a very simple nose shape. And if you don't want to have closed sleepy eyes, you can go ahead and add 2 tiny little buttons there if you like. They'll need to be black and they won't be very visible. So if you do that, stitch them on with white thread, and that will give you a bit of a highlight in the eye so you'll actually see them. You could stitch the sleepy eyes on the head itself, and in this case you would need to do it in a lighter colour, but I think the little sleepy mask is absolutely adorable. I will be adding a little scarf out of just some knit t-shirt fabric. Super simple, won't even sew it up. I will just cut it and wrap it around the neck. You could use anything you like for that. We will be filling with some polyester filling, and you need something for weight. Couple of things you can use. I'm going to be using coarse shell grit, which is clean and dry, and it's going to give me lovely weight in the base. You could use clean, dry rice. You could use plastic pellets made specifically for toy making, glass beads, anything that just adds a little bit of weight. Some fine aquarium gravel would do it too. And they are intended just to be a bed sitter or a shelf sitter, so they're not sort of a toy that a child would play with. You know, just make your own judgment with what you're going to put in there to fill that up, but it does need some weight. So our first step, we are going to go ahead and start on the body. So to start on the body, we are going to take our 2 side body pieces and we're going to put them right sides together. And because I'm using Sherpa, I'm going to be tucking that Sherpa in to the seams as best I can, pinning from the base all the way up to the top and meeting those marks. So I will pin right where those marks are. You'll also need a button for adding the head at the end, something that matches the coat colour of your sheep. It doesn't need to be a huge button, probably around about a 20mm button will do. I'm matching up the other side now. And tucking that fur in. Of course, you won't have to tuck anything in if you're using fleece. Fleece does make up really well in this project. And I will continue on, pin down to the other side. So then we're going to overcast this first with our extra strong thread. So we're going to overcast to this mark and then leave this top section open, overcast down to the base here and leave the base open. Then you take it to your machine and you are going to sew a 4 to 5mm seam allowance. Because we're using Sherpa, we do need a little bit more room to work with, so I'll be using about a 5mm seam allowance. Make sure you back and forth on your start and finish in all of the areas, and I do sew those seams 2 times because this is going to be stuffed. Okay, so that has my body section stitched, and you can see that top section left open, that's our turn through, and the base is left open. Let's now pin in the base. Now if you are making this one up all in felt, you will need that felt is interfaced as well, your side body pieces. If you're making it up in fleece, you don't need to add anything to it. You don't interface fleece, and you won't need to add any PVA because fleece is pretty good with non-fray. Okay, so now we are going to take our base section. Because I'm working with the Sherpa, I just trim off right on that seam there, that little bit of pile, and I'm going to take right sides, put them together. I'm going to take a pin through that centre mark there, straight through the seam. Push that pin head all the way down, Don't need to trim this side, and I'm going to do the same the other end, matching it up with the mark. So everything goes in perfectly even. Again, straight through that seam, and then you can just start to pin that one in place, tucking that pile in. You want to take your pin through all the layers, flip it over, and take up a little bit of fabric on the other side and push that pin head all the way down. I like to go from side to side, so I'm popping it in evenly. Again, tucking in that pile. Take my pin through all the layers, flip it over, take up just a little on the other side, and push the pin head all the way down. That way we're pinning this in 3D, which just makes it so much easier when you come to overcast it in place, because the pins are all clamped down. So you can see that if you followed your seam allowances here, this will fit in beautifully. So I will get that all pinned into place, then I will go ahead and overcast it, and then this is big enough and flexible enough to sew this piece in on the machine, which I will do. Do make sure that you go over these two junctions here, go over them a couple of times, and I do sew that in, that seam 2 times, and it's the same 4 to 5 millimeter seam allowance. Once you have that base sewn into place, you can go ahead and turn this one through, and you just take that through that top opening. Because it's Sherpa or fleece that we're working with, that will just turn through easily. Take your knitting needle and go ahead and push out all of those seams. And if you are working with Sherpa, once you've turned that through, go ahead and you can lift the pile out from the seams, so they're all nicely covered and nice and rounded all the way around the base as well. And then our next step is we're going to fill up the lower portion of our sheep with our weighted material, whatever you're using. I've just made a little cardboard funnel which I will tuck into the neck here, and I will pour in my coarse shell grit, and I'm going to fill about 1/3 up, so there's a fair bit of weight. Shake it down and make sure everything is sitting nice and flat. Now I have that base nicely weighted, and I've just let that settle so it will sit. You can see that it's sitting beautifully. And now I'm going to take my polyester filling and I'm going to top the rest of it up, keeping that sitting nice and flat on the tabletop. And I'm going to tuck in that filling, and I'm going to really make that quite firm the whole time, keeping a nice flat base. And you want to fill that up, fill out all those lovely curves right up to the top. We've got this little curve section at the top, and you really do want to fill it right up to the very top there. If you have a wool felting needle, you can go ahead and use that to help pack that stuffing in. So that body is all nicely filled, and I have taken my felting needle and just tucked all of that filling in, but you can see it is filled right to the very top. Now if you are working with Sherpa, go ahead and just trim off some of that fur just on an angle so that we have a better view of where we're going to sew, and it will give us a cleaner finish. You don't have to do this with felt or fleece, but it just pulls it away a little from the edge, gives it a cleaner, more rounded finish. And then we're going to take our pearl thread. As I said, I'm using an 8-ply pearl thread, a nice big pile of knots in the end, and I'm going to take my needle in right through that seam where that seam starts to open out. Pull that through, that knot will hold, and we're just going to pinch those edges together and we're going to sew a blanket stitch to close it. So blanket stitch means you take your needle through all of the layers and you bring your needle out through the thread loop. Pull that in nice and firm, keep your stitches nice and small and even. Again, through all the layers, bring your needle out through the thread loop. It's going to bind those edges and cover that raw edge with that little edging stitch. And it does look neater if you do that little bit of trimming first. Keep going until you've completely closed that top little curved opening. And there we go, that completes our little sheep's body. This is where the head is going to sit. If you want to do a little bit more trimming over that top edge to make it all nice and rounded, go ahead. We can set that body aside now and we're going to start working on the head. So we have our two head pieces, our felt, our interfaced felt. We're going to put right sides together and we're going to line up the lower edge of the face. So from the base of each ear here all the way around to the other side, you're going to overcast this, and then this seam you keep as small as you can, so around about 3 millimeters. Match up the marks that I've given you on your pattern template so you're getting it all nice and straight. So just from exactly from where that ear, the base of the ear is, all the way around, and I do sew that seam 2 times because we are adding a bit of stuffing in the head. You can go ahead and turn that head through once you have stitched that lower chin seam, and take your knitting needle and really push that seam out. You want a beautiful curved lower edge to that face. Now we're going to be adding some filling here, but first we're going to glue the ear pieces together. So we've got our clear craft glue, and just glue the back of the ear from the base all the way to the tip, straight across. And just seal those two edges together. Now the beauty of making a black-faced sheep is that if you have any white core showing, we are going to be blanket stitching around this, but if you have any white core showing, we can just take our laundry marker and colour that up so everything's going to be nice and black. I will take a clip, a little wonder clip, and I'll clip it right there to hold that ear together. I'm going to glue the second one together and set that aside to dry just for about 20 minutes or so. Okay, so now those ears are dried, so we've just got this little pocket here where we're going to add some filling. So that's why it's really important to wait until those ears are properly dried, or they'll just pop open again. So I'm just going to take my forceps and I'm going to stuff that head. We want to keep it still quite a flattened little shape, so we don't want this to end up like this tiny skinny thing. So you need to control and shape that as you're stuffing, and you can see that I'm holding it all nice and flat as I'm adding that filling, but I still am tucking it down and making it nice and firm. We are going to sew a little nose and part of a mouth there, and I will fill this all the way to the top of the head, and I'll use my felting needle as I go to keep packing it all in, and that'll stop it from jumping out at me. So there you can see I've got that head nicely filled. I'm keeping it pinched at the top there, so you can see it's just like a little eclipse shape, but it's enough stuffing to give it more of a realistic look rather than just a little flat face. So I have taken my felting needle and tucked all those fibres in. You could add a clip there if you like while you're going to do this next step, which is just sewing that blanket stitch all the way around. So I've taken my pearl thread in black, single strand, and I've got a knot in the end. I'm going to take my needle in at the top of the head and bring it out at the base of the ear here between those two layers. And we're going to sew a tiny blanket stitch all the way around this ear, across the top of the head to close the top of the head, and then back around the other ear there. As I said before, because we're working with black, if there's any white core showing afterwards, we can touch that up with our marker. So again, with a blanket stitch, tiny little stitches in this case, and we're taking our needle through all of the layers and bringing it through the loop. Pull on that and you'll get that lovely binding stitch for a nice neat finish all the way around. Just keep those stitches nice and even. It's a bit hard for you to see here because I'm working with black, but of course I need to, and don't be tempted to use any other colour than black on this black face sheet, otherwise you will lose the beautiful clear outline of that silhouette. So you can see I'm just going to continue on back round to the base of the other ear. There we go, so that has that little head all stitched up, and I've gone ahead with my laundry marker and just touched up any areas that are showing white. So we've got that lovely clean look, and now we are going to sew in just a very simple lip and nose section. Now there's a certain way we do with this that keeps with the sort of the realism of the whole thing. I'm using my pearl thread that matches the coat colour, the sheep's coat colour, and I have a knot in the end. It's a single strand. Again, it is my 8 ply, and I'm going to come in from behind the head, and it doesn't matter where because the back of the head won't be seen, so the knot will be hidden. But I've put a pin in the spot where I want to come out, and it's actually from the centre chin seam here. Again, very hard to see with the black. It's probably about 4 millimeters from there, so a little way up, and it's right in the centre. And I'm going to bring my needle out exactly on that spot because we don't want a super long top lip, and it does have to be central. So that should do it. Pull that through. Then I'm going to pull that down. So this is, I'm making that lip there now, and I'm going to take my needle straight in to that centre seam. I'm going to bring my needle out to the side. We're making a little V-shaped nose, so you want to bring it out to the far corner of where you want that nose to be, and it really is just a little V-shape. I'm going to pull that in nice and snug, and then we're just going to slip our needle under that stitch. Don't catch any of the fabric. Pull that through, pull that nice and tight. I'm going to pull it up the other side and take my needle in to match up what I've just done there. There we go. So that gives you that simple little nose and top lip. Now you don't add in a smile here on the front of the face because that would change all of the proportions. The mouth would ideally be this centre seam, so you wouldn't see it. So just remember that. That's a way more realistic and a much sweeter look. So of course you can here, if you want the little sheep's eyes to be open, you can add your 2 little buttons. Remember that they will sit up higher here as they would with an actual little sheep. So the eye line would sit just almost level with the base of the ears. And as I said, use some white thread if you're going to use a tiny button or a bead. I'm going to have my little sheep wear her sleep mask, so I don't need to do that. So I'm going to put this aside and let's start working on that little sleep mask. So on that tiny sleep mask, I've just drawn in, using my little circle template here, I've just drawn in 2 little curved lines either side. I'm using my heat erasable marker, and I've drawn 1 lash in the centre of each and then 1 either side. So you could add more if you like, you could change the whole design up, make them more glamorous, whatever you like. I'm just keeping mine nice and sweet like that, and I'm now going to stitch over those lines using a stab back stitch with my black extra strong thread. It has just a knot in the end. Remember that this won't be seen. We can hide that knot, and I'm simply going to start at one end right on that line, because I can take this to the iron afterwards and I'll be able to erase those marks. And I'm just going to follow that line, nice small stitches to outline that shape. I use the extra strong thread because it's nice and clear and gives a really good clean line. See, it's just as simple as sewing over those lines, and I'll do the lashes separately, and then I will take it back to the iron and remove those marks. So that has those lovely lashes in place, and now I am simply going to sew a tiny blanket stitch around the whole outside edge. I'm using purple. Again, I'm using my extra strong thread, and I'm just going to come in from behind, bring my needle out somewhere on the edge between those two layers, and keep my stitches really tiny, and it just gives it a lovely edging stitch. Now you could get really carried away with this and you could really embellish this little mask any way you like. You could certainly do a beaded blanket stitch, and I do have a video tutorial for a beaded blanket stitch. Mine is just going to be quite simple, and you can see again I'm just going through all those layers and bringing my needle out through the loop each time. When you're sewing a blanket stitch, always remember to rotate your work so that your stitches are all fanning out evenly as you go. If you don't turn your work, you'll end up with a slant to your stitches, and that's just going to give a really professional little finish that's neat and tidy, and it also gives you an opportunity for adding another colour. And so there is my very cute little sleep mask, and give it a little curve. So it's going to sit over the little sheep's face beautifully. Now you've got a couple of options here of how you do that. Now where it should sit is right there, just above the ear line here, just about central, should go up over the forehead just a little. Now you can either stitch it from behind, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to come in from behind with my extra strong thread at the back of the head. I'm going to take a little stitch from behind that mask, pull it back through and knot it off, and I'll do that on each side. But I'm going to be very careful to make sure I've got a nice bit of tension in it so that mask sits out a little. Alternatively, you can make it a removable mask, and you could take a piece of hat elastic, little fine hat elastic, knot it on this side and take it around, knot it on the other so that the little mask can be taken off. I'll explain to you why later that you could do that. But mine is going to be a permanent thing. So I'm just going to stitch it from behind, and then we will be ready to add that head to the body. That has our little lovely wearing her little sleep mask, and now we can go ahead and add that head to the body. So what you have to determine is exactly where that's going to sit. Now it does actually need to sit down a little lower, because remember that she's asleep, so her head will be tucked under, and that is just a matter of determining from behind. We're going to take our button. Remember I said you need about a 20mm button. Ideally it would be a 2-hole button. That's going to sit in behind here. We're going to take our needle, which I have threaded up with a doubled strand of extra strong thread which matches the fur. I'm going to go in one side of that button. I'm going to travel through, straight through the body section. I'm going to come out the front. I'm going to take a big stitch across the centre back of the head. Then I'm going to go back around, travel back through and come out the other hole in the button. So it will all be on like a little pulley system. I'm going to do that and show you how it looks. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So what we've got is our needle and thread has gone in through one side of the button. It's gone straight through. Remember that little curved area that we stitched up? So straight through there, taken a nice big stitch across, straight across, and it's about midway through the head, and then travelled back the same path on the other side and come out the other side of the button. Make sure, you see what we've got there? Make sure that the threads aren't twisted. If you pull on that and compress it all together, you can check from the front and make sure that the little sheep's head is in the right position. And it should look, as I said, it should be sitting down with shoulders coming up here. It shouldn't be too far down because that'll look odd, and it certainly shouldn't be perched up on top of the body. So once you've done that, you can compress all of those layers and you can knot that off, keeping that tension up, knot that off at least 4 times and then snip those thread ends. So that completes my beautiful little sleep sheep. That's hard to say. So I have added just a little bell around the neck, just on a little black thread there, and that completes mine. I like that very simple look. You could also add something like a scarf. I've made a little fleece scarf here that will look just as beautiful. You might want to keep it completely plain, and remember that you can make up this sheep without the sleep mask. And in fact, a great tip for you all, those of you who make and sell, a great tip for a gift pack with this one would be to make up your little sheep just like this. Make the mask, as I said, removable, either with little ties to tie it on behind or a little bit of elastic. Put the little button eyes on behind it and then create, just even if you just enlarge this to suit a child size mask, make it up, felt on one side, something fluffy on the other, little bit of elastic, and then you've got a little sleep pack. And it's a great idea for putting little ones to bed, and the little sheep gets her little mask put on, they put theirs on. It's a little bit of a bedtime ritual that can be really lovely. So I just think if you were on selling markets or online, that sort of thing, it would be a great little package to sell. And you can imagine what you can do with all of this, and you can dress it up any way you like. So I certainly hope you've enjoyed my little sleep sheep, and thank you for joining me. So you know, another good idea with this little pattern, I'm an ideas person, I'm full of ideas today. You can increase or decrease this pattern and create a whole little flock of different size sheep, or maybe a mama sheep and some smaller sheep. I'm tripping over my words today. But they would look lovely without their little sleep visors, and make them up as a whole little flock. I would love to see that. Somebody do that, please. And please share it on our Facebook page. If you haven't joined, come and join our Facebook group, because it is a beautiful, positive, creative group, and you'll see all of my patterns and projects being made up by people with all different ideas, putting their own spin on them, and it's lovely to see. Thank you all who contribute there. A big shout out to beautiful Alison, who keeps that all running there. We thank you so much, Mr. T and I, Alison. Thank you for all your hard work. So come and join us there. If you do want to step up to masterclass, the link will be down below as well. And I look forward to seeing more of you there. Now, if we want to stamp out the plagiarism that is currently happening to my work, I will take it as flattery that so many of my designs are being stolen and sold, which is horrific when you consider that I give them away for free. The best way for us all to fight them is to keep on spreading the word about Pay It Forward. The more we do that, the more people will access these beautiful patterns for free, and that is my whole mission. So share away on your platforms, and we'll get the word out there. Thank you all so much for doing that. I want to send out a special mention and a special shout out to the lovely Bridget Tange. I hope I'm getting your name right, Bridget. Bridget and I chat on Instagram, so if you want to talk to me privately, come and see me on Instagram. We chat all the time. A really wonderful, talented lady, and she herself has a whole group of followers. So I want to say hi to all of you too. Thank you for tuning in. And Bridget is a wonderful creative quilter and now a soft sculptor. And just lovely to chat with her online. Lovely to talk to you, Bridget. Special shout out for you. Looking forward to chatting with more of you. And look, everybody, have a fantastic creative week. Lots of sheep, please. Looking forward to seeing it. Often makes my day. So you're seeing little things that you've shared with me. So looking forward to that. Stay safe, everyone. Keep on paying those good things forward. Till next time, it is hooroo from me.